Dude, I used AI once to help me make a stand-up flyer for a show, advertising a show. Don't do that. People do not like that. And I know that now because I learned it. I want to tell you about some other things I learned about myself and about other people from that experience. When AI art became commercially like a thing that you could do, I experimented with it because it sounded pretty good. Now, I'm not trying to replace artists. That is not entirely true. I am trying to replace one artist, and that is myself. So I could replace me doing art with time it takes to sleep and do other stuff. And have a life. Because if you don't live a life, you have nothing to be an artist about. More than half of what I make goes to other artists to help me continue to make art. And it wasn't like, Mike, have you thought of the implications of doing this? It was, you should have hired somebody else to do this, or you should have made it yourself. This goes against everything who I thought you were about everything about that, which is untrue because my whole intention was to save time, and my entire YouTube career thus far has been centered around saving people time. Now something is happening. I'll do the next part outside. What do you think about that? There's something about using AI that makes people think you're making like a moral declaration, and they'll say it's wrong and you're stealing from artists. And I don't know. I truly don't know. You know who else steals from artists a lot? Artists, all the time. I almost exclusively, for the first 8 years of my life, drew pictures of Bart Simpson. And I would draw a little thought bubble, and he would always be thinking swears that I couldn't say out loud. So we might disagree on certain points, but whatever, disagreement is fine. Disagreement is good and helpful. But I think what bummed me out the most is people weren't super interested in hearing my reasoning about stuff. In a productive argument, you at least try to hear the other person out. That's what my therapist says, and I have to believe him because he costs $200 per week. That's especially true when you disagree with people that you like. You at least try to hear them out and hear where they're coming from. And I didn't really feel like that was happening. What I heard was a bunch of people trying to be right instead of a bunch of people trying to come to an understanding about somebody trying to figure out a new thing. Now, if I'm being honest, over time, my whole thoughts about the whole thing have started to shift for various reasons. My favorite part of art is the inconsistencies and the fact that it's not perfect and the fact that it's flawed. But I would do this thing where if I was making it, I would hold it to some standard that I didn't always have time to produce. I think regardless of the way something looks, I think that the coolest thing about a piece of art is that it comes from another person. Art is like an x-ray, but instead of seeing bones, you see what somebody is thinking. And then you pass that along to another person with their own collection of thoughts, and that's nice. The AI stuff is kind of void of that, and it clouds the interpersonal experience part, which I grew to not appreciate very much. Somebody actually said, I would rather see you scribble on a piece of paper. And, you know, I tend to agree with that because scribble is inherently endearing. Scribble is endearing. I would rather take a handwritten note that said, I love you in bad handwriting than some like random card from CVS. No hate to CVS. They always have my prescriptions on time. This is not an ad. The one I go to always has actors from the 90s who are yelling at the pharmacist. That has nothing to do with this. Also, another thing happened recently where I had to go buy a hard drive. I had to go buy an SSD external hard drive. These are storage devices that I put all of my media on. It's what I work off of exclusively. The computers that I use don't have a lot of internal memory, so you need these fast external drives so you can put footage or when I edit photos for the clubs, and they're insanely expensive. They've been expensive, and now it's even more so because all the AI companies are buying up the technology it takes to make them work. So I literally bought something recently that on the price tag it had for $1,000, and in the past couple weeks it jumped up to $1,400. That's fucking nuts. And I know that there's a strong element of all the AI stuff that messes with the environment, and I know that. But I do a lot of stuff that messes with the environment. I drive a car that's powered by gas. I play golf on a course that takes up a lot of water, and I eat meat. But it's harder to see the environmental impact of something than you can instantly. Affecting your wallet is more of a slap in the face than
than eventual environmental stuff. I say that despite living in Los Angeles, where the city is on fire most of the time. If you want to create more vegetarians, you make hamburgers $1,400. All of that stuff shifted my way of thinking more than the philosophical arguments. And if I'm being honest, my biggest takeaway from this whole thing wasn't the tech stuff. It was the way people treated each other. And more importantly, how people treat each other when they're figuring something out. I was experimenting publicly with a thing, and maybe that's on me, dude, because when you experiment publicly, you open yourself up to publicly. But some people treated me like this whole thing was like a verdict on my character, which is fucking wacky, because we have learned as people in society to give people so much grace when they're figuring certain things out, big things. And then with certain topics, that grace just like disappears. They're like, you have to understand it exactly the way I understand it, or you're a bad person. And that's why this country is like how this country is. And this especially happened with really like liberal identifying people, which is interesting. And I think that bummed me out more than the argument itself. So all that is to say, I'm off of AI for art. I'm not interested. I figured that out for myself. I'll go back to stealing from artists the original way, which is looking at something and liking it a lot and being like, I wonder how they did that. And more importantly, I'm off judging people harshly while they're in the figuring it out stage, because I didn't like the way that felt, and I will just do my best not to do that to other people. I'm just a guy on the internet. You are just somebody who is also on the internet right now. We don't have to agree on everything, but we should give each other room to figure stuff out. I have so many shows coming up, and I would love to see you at some of those. No AI will be present that I will know of. If it is around, it will probably be hidden within your phone working in the background. I would love to see you at shows. Thank you so much for your contribution to these videos, whether it is asking me a question in the comments or in the DMs of my Instagram, or criticizing me to my face. If you want to text me directly, it's 818-722-8682. Next time, if you want me to talk about something that maybe applies to your life a little bit more, just ask me about it. Next time, we could talk about something more fun, like how loud my neighbors are at having sex and how bad they are at it. And I can only tell by listening. There's a lack of rhythm. Should it affect me at all? Absolutely not. But it does, and I can't shake it. All right, I hope you have a really good day. I hope whatever you are currently trying to figure out happens. Amen and God bless.